I know when you talk about recruitment you say it shouldn't really happen that the manager is doing that. I personally feel that you have to have that sort of happy medium where you have the manager and the director of football or someone from recruitment working together, because what you've done with him is you've given him the exposure to get those players and they haven't been good enough. Obviously you've got Anthony, 85 million, the other players I've got a list here. You know, Mount Hoyland hasn't been as effective as you'd have liked. We go on and on and on as a goalkeeper. But surely, you know, I think back to Alex Ferguson when you were there, the most successful period Manchester United had, Alex Ferguson and his fingerprints pretty much every single sign in that come. So that's where you had so much success. So if the manager doesn't bring in the right players, that proves that probably he's not the right man because you're giving him that trust. If he thinks Anthony is an £85 million player, that for me is such a worry when I watch him play and what he brings to the team. That is terrifying that he thinks he's 85 million. Yeah, that's the one that's going to stand out. I think just on Erik ten Hag, that 85 million, 90 million pounds on Anthony Ware, you know, he's obviously nowhere near that level. But even the 70 million pounds on Hoyland is a lot of money. It's 55 million on Mounts, a lot of money, 60 million on Casemiro and a 5-year deals, a lot of money. There are a lot of deals that you can start to look at with a glass half empty. You know, if you look at the recruitment, but look, Jamie, I get your point around managers, but gone are the days, I think, where, you know, your dad and maybe Sir Alex Ferguson, they would have travelled probably 3-4 times nights a week to go and watch other players, wouldn't they? And they would have been like a chief scout. They would have been head of academy. They would have been head of recruitment. You know, Sir Alex Ferguson used to go and watch games at night. He then go and watch the academy playing the sort of, you know, on the Saturday morning, then go to the first team in the afternoon. The head coaches that are here at these clubs now, they really do concentrate, maybe apart from, say, a Pep Guardiola and a Jurgen Klopp, who really sort of got their foundations set at a club. They come in for like a year, 2 years thinking, right, I've got to get these players right. And the transient roles really had coaches at football clubs to the point whereby they're concentrating solely on coaching the team. So the people who are going watching the players around the world, and this is a sort of global scouting game for Manchester United and the other top clubs in this country and in Europe, those people have to be trusted to go and select the right players to bring forward to Erik ten Hag. And then obviously then they liaise, converse with each other and they try and come to the right conclusion. What looks to have happened here is that Manchester United's recruitment department, we don't know what it is or who it is or how it's been built, but it's somewhere because they've got a lot of scouts employed, can't have gone and watched Anthony and signed him off at £85 million. It looks like they've allowed Erik ten Hag to overrule them, which is worrying because you need strength of leadership at the very top. Can you ever see that one working, Gary, with Anthony? It's a difficult one. I tried to sort of in the first half, because the game was a bit slow, do a little bit of coaching. Where I was just trying to say to him, he's got 2 things, hasn't he? He can cut back, he can take it down the line, he can cut back on his left foot and he can whip it in with his left foot as a cross, or he can cut inside, he can try and get a shot away. That was Red Mahrez's game for what would be 5, 6, 7 years at Leicester and Manchester City. He's nowhere near Reid Mahrez, he's nowhere near the level. But if you're a young player and you're trying to get some consistency in your game, and you're trying to look at a player that you might be like, I was trying to sort of just give him a little bit of something to say, you know, can you just look at another player and try and cut? He doesn't look to me like he's had any work on him, and that's maybe a sort of insult to the coaching staff at United. I know a couple of them, I work with Steve McLaren, I can't believe Steve McLaren's not speaking to Anthony and saying, look, just simplify your game back a little bit. You know, pop it back to your fullback, make a spinning behind. You know, when you get it and you sort of run at people, look to come in and just try and drift it into an area at the back post where you might put a goal on the training pitch and you might ask him to do it 30 times. This consistency and repetition that you used to see when you were developing young wingers, young wide players, where you know they're inconsistent. I do have my fears that the temperament is not there from Anthony, that the consistency is not there. But what I would say is he has something in that he does take the ball every single time and he does want the ball every single time, and there are certain players out on that pitch that I don't feel they do. He actually wants the ball. Now, Genixio, to be fair, wants the ball all the time, he thinks he can beat players, he's got the confidence. Anthony hasn't got the confidence at this moment in time to go and beat players, but he does show for it, but he's so frustrating. I mean, I blame the football club. I'd really do for bringing him in at £85 million. It is not that boy's fault he's been brought in as one of the most expensive wide players in world football. He should never have been brought in for that money. You've got to back your manager, Gary. You've got to back the manager. If your manager comes into Man United and he says, listen, I want this guy, get him for me. I need him, he's got the ability. And you don't then back him. What kind of message does that send between the manager and the ownership? I don't agree with that. You've got to let him have his man. If he says he was my man at Ajax, I can get the best out of him.